Welcome back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness podcast. Pete, we've got a big show on tap. I got to look at the timing. We're either going to release this interview that we did with external. I guess he called himself an external intern. I believe it's more of like a post-grad intern. Jordan Niesler. He's the guy that puts out these awesome videos on Twitter that you see post-game. We've got an interview with him. It may be on this episode. It may not. Either way, it's coming out in the next few days. Just got to see how long this goes. Pete, how we doing, man?
I'm doing really well. And honestly, circling back to that interview, I mean, regardless of whether it's part of this episode or not, you guys need to get on that. It's a really kind of interesting inside look at kind of how that the social media content that you see throughout games, after games, throughout the week, kind of how the sausage gets made. It's really fascinating stuff. And, he's a young, great guy. We really, really liked our talk with him.
Yeah, it was super interesting. I certainly enjoyed kind of getting more of a peek behind the curtain and really kind of an insight into, the fly on the wall that puts these videos out and because I can't imagine trying to sit courtside and take video while the game's going on and not react to what I'm watching. So major props to him for everything he does. But before we get talking about the wild week of off the court Billiken hoops news, of course I got to talk to you guys about Wheelhouse Bicycle Shop in Creve Coeur. You already know, if you're a loyal listener, that if you're looking for, that super specialized road bike, mountain bike, or you're looking for that beach cruiser, go check out Wheelhouse Bicycle and talk to Nathan Leventhal at 770 North New Ballas Road in Creve Coeur. You can also find him online at wheelhousebicycle.com. He's the best in town and he will hook you up. But moving on to men's basketball, transfers. We had some transfers. We had one player surprisingly leave. But let's talk about the transfers first. These were unsurprising, Peter.
Yeah, you mentioned the surprising one, and it's none of these. The guys who transferred out: Markai Strickland, Andre Lawrenson, and Rashad Williams. Strickland and Andre, two guys who, they came in at the same time and just never really had a chance to crack the rotation. I feel bad because I think both of these guys have some good long-term potential. Lawrenson's a good shooter. He's grown since he's been on campus. Could have been kind of an inside-out threat. And then Strickland, obviously, in the moments we saw of him, flashes just incredible leaping ability, athleticism, can bring down the house with his dunks. And like we said last week, the 18 minutes he got in our last game, he actually looked pretty good. So it's a bummer to see him go, but I totally understand why. They're both redshirt freshmen in this weird kind of COVID time. And, they're looking out at the roster next season and maybe even after that. And it's still pretty tough to crack. We're going to have a lot of the same personnel. And so they just didn't want a third straight year of staring down the bench.
It's really kind of interesting with the transfer portal the way it is that and you saw it a little bit with Majerus with a guy like the Greek can't think of his name right now.
Who was there? Salantakis?
Yes, Emmanuel Salantakis.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like players will come into a low major program and they'll just come in for a year, right? It's almost like you're going to a JUCO, but you're not. You're sitting on the bench and you're a practice player getting, the odd minutes here or there in a blowout. It's almost, it almost kind of is the oh gosh, I'm having a moment. It's kind of just an option other than maybe going JUCO. If you're not necessarily ready, you don't really want to go low just yet. You're maybe not getting the offers you think you should get. Maybe a late signee. You go to a bigger program, you ride the bench for a year, and then you transfer out to either a bigger program or another program of the same size.
Yeah, or you just go back home, play for
Yeah.
a club team too. They don't seem. I don't know if that's. I'd be kind of curious to see the numbers on it, but international players, and it strikes me, especially as European players, don't seem to have as much of an issue leaving a program. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just perception because we've had a lot of European guys come in for 1 or 2 years and leave, and and a lot of them have been relatively quiet in and out too. I don't know if they just kind of have higher expectations about playing right away or what, but regardless, we've definitely kind of seen that here a little bit. But it was a little bit different story with our third transfer, Rashad Williams.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Now that you mention it, thank you for bringing it up because I would have glossed over because I'm not paying attention all that well. No, people got to realize that I'm reading off a sheet and I'm listening to you, and it's hard to really follow everything at once. So, Rashad Williams, yeah, what do you make of this? I mean, he, I I mean, just moving on. I don't. It's weird.
The trick for him is that whatever his next school is going to be his fourth, right? So he started out at Cleveland State and transferred to Oakland, and then got a waiver, and it was pretty last minute to be eligible this season at SLU. But he still has one more year of eligibility. So I guess he wants to use his fifth year somewhere else, but being eligible right away could be an issue. So I'm curious to see kind of what happens there and when he's actually able to play again. Regardless, Williams is a volume shooter, period. We've talked about him a little bit on the show, um, mostly in the context of he never really had his value unlocked, sort of as a momentum, a guy who gets hot, a guy who shoots a lot of threes, and you need to kind of ride his hot hand and ride out his cold hand. And that's just not going to happen when you come in for 3 to 5 minutes a game. It just didn't work here.
This sounds a lot like you watching me tweet from our podcast Twitter account, and then you tweeting like more like a Jimerson, like you get one shot and you make it. I take about 15 shots and I usually get one successful tweet.
You're being humble because when I think about like the stuff of ours that has got like the most likes ever, it's generally it's generally like real inspiration hits you.
No, it's funny though because I literally laugh out loud at some of the stuff you tweet, and then like it does nothing, and I'm just like, why? That's
I
hilarious.
I guess I'm like the like when they talk about a comedian's comedian.
Yes, you are
The
the
guy, he
you're the aristocrats joke of tweeters.
he's been doing it for 20 years in front of 20 people. But regardless, Williams, we heard from multiple coaches on our own show leading into the season, he's unbelievable in scrimmage. Like he'll make it from 30 feet out routinely. Like they talked about him really being a scoring threat. Um, but I think what a couple things happen is like as you actually get into games, we know that Travis Ford values defenders, and he's not the best defender. Um, and number two, when it became clear that DeAndre Jones was going to be a very serviceable backup to Collins, Williams is kind of the odd man out, because then where do you play him? You can't constantly have two sub 6 foot guys in your backcourt. And Williams is probably right at about 6 feet. Jones and Collins probably right under 6 feet. There's only so many combinations you can run when you've got Collins, who's going to be playing 35 minutes a game, plus Jones. And then, yeah, what do you do with Williams? Where do you stick him? So I think kind of all of those things came together, and it just didn't wind up being a good fit. Um, it's one of those sort of transfers that made sense on paper and just didn't pan out. I wish he was like a 6'6" wing who was just a deadly shooter or something like that. But when you're a 6 foot 6'1" off guard, it's a little bit trickier to slot him into this lineup.
The this is weird. Jordan Nesbitt's Twitter post is gone.
Uh,
I
yeah.
just I uh
Well, we can at least talk about what he tweeted in the first place.
has somebody been trying to tell me this and I just didn't get it?
Um, yeah. Are
This
we?
is this the weirdest moment we've ever had on the show?
Because we're ready to talk about the March 24th news that Nesbitt declared for the NBA draft. But then we're trying to like go find the tweets and everything that back that up, and they're gone. To give people an idea
Because I,
of
I
what
want to
just
be
happened.
honest, and I'm sure I don't. I really hope nobody. No, I'm sure there are people that are connected with Jordan Nesbitt that listen to this show. I'm sure people love to listen
Yeah.
to things about themselves. They do. I love to find. I did when I played sports, whatever. But I genuinely was very upset when he tweeted on March 26th, Team Blue for 5 Life. I was genuinely annoyed after he tweeted out that he was going to the NBA draft. Like, I was super petty annoyed by that. Now I'm not seeing his tweet, and now it's making sense.
Uh, so are you thinking that this means he's staying? I mean, because so okay, so this is as we record this, this tweet goes out about 24 hours ago because we record on Sunday nights. This goes out on Saturday night. You know, I was gone all weekend out of town with my kids, so you know, I wasn't super wired into what's happening. But this is a typical vague.
Pete's gonna have to carry about the next 2 minutes because I'm trying to gather my whole like shtick over here.
Yeah. So Jordan Nesbitt is one of these guys who came in. You know, I think most people probably listening to this know the story. Comes in from Memphis. He picked Memphis over SLU in Illinois. Decides to enroll early at Memphis in the middle of last season, halfway through the semester break. He goes there. He doesn't really play, doesn't really fit in, gets frustrated, leaves, comes home to St. Louis. Right. So he's on SLU's roster as a redshirt freshman this year. And he's a supremely talented guy, 6.5 feet, about really athletic. We talked about a lot this season how we didn't necessarily work him into our schemes necessarily the way you know we may have. He's a good offensive rebounder, high energy player, good finisher. Uh, didn't get he didn't put together quite the numbers that I think he could have, but the potential is certainly there. And we kind of thought like he has the ability to come back as a sophomore and string together a really good season. I don't think anybody saw an NBA draft declaration happening quite this soon. I think that caught a lot of us off guard, you included.
Yeah. Yeah, so he posts and I went to look for it to read it and it's no longer there. Um so now we have a large mystery, the size of a Disney Channel original movie. Um
I mean, I think we have to assume.
this is like that Lindsay Lohan Disney Channel original movie where she has to solve the mystery of her missing teacher.
He got rid of it on Instagram too. I'm looking at
Oh my
Instagram now.
goodness.
Um, so yeah, it's a little.
This
it's
is
a
why at the end of this episode you're going to hear it where I tell you you need to watch this show on YouTube
yeah.
because I'm
Yeah, we're just you know
you can
I
watch me
got
melt down in person.
this is I guess where if we'd have a producer in our ear like 2 or 3 minutes ago going okay we're gonna put this on pause. We're gonna edit something together. But to be perfectly frank, there's not like an easy answer right there.
No.
He took down the NBA draft declaration posts, and then yesterday, 2 days ago, if you're listening to this when it drops, Saturday night, he tweets. You know, he gets rid of those. He deletes those posts, and then puts out a vague sort of Billiken Team Blue
Billiken love.
5L. Yeah.
More than for life. It's, you know.
So I guess we'll just leave it with to be continued.
Yeah. But hold on. Here's a little twisty to it all. He still has the Rothstein retweet,
Yeah,
and
I
everybody
noticed
knows
that.
that Rothstein speaks for America, and Jordan Nesbitt is an American.
Yeah, yeah.
Peter is very angry with me right
Rothstein is my least favorite person on it. Well, maybe we'll do a special episode sometime trying to figure out if he's a real person. Um,
now. And the robot, our robot overlords are here
yeah,
way
not,
sooner than
yeah, yeah. Seriously, now,
we have to take a trip to Bar Coastal and see if we can find him. Just sit up there for a week straight.
oh God. All right,
Let's.
now I definitely want to move on.
This is maybe my favorite moment in the history of this show. The transfer portal, though. Jimmy Bell Jr. Is he coming back?
Well, he could. I mean, the interesting, I guess, news, if you want to call it here, is that SLU is kind of in the mix for him again. Jimmy Bell, as we know, left SLU heading into this past season and went to Moberly area community college out in central Missouri. What's that, about a half hour or so north of Columbia?
I
Um,
believe so.
and that's where Sincere Parker, one of our 3 signed players for this upcoming year, is too. So it's kind of a double layer of interest to kind of follow them this year. But it was reported that he is, he's heard from a number of coaches, including West Virginia, where he's going to visit soon. East Tennessee State, he just visited this past weekend. Um, and it came up that St. Louis is talking to him again. So again, to be continued, and we'll see. And he's definitely going to go on these visits and kind of, in his words, see what place feels like home. But I don't know. SLU could be in the mix. What do you think about the potential return?
I want to. I want to know what number player he would be to do that. To lead, like in the NCAA, in Division One specifically. That's a
I'm
wild move.
it is, and not just transferring there and back, which I can't think of another example, but going to a JUCO and then coming
Yeah.
back. Everything about it is really strange.
I mean, I know there were some rumblings that maybe he didn't want to leave, but I don't think there. I'll say that. I'll say this: he may not have wanted to leave, but it wasn't the coach's decision for him to leave. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I mean, another to be continued, and
right, exactly.
yeah,
Pete, you are known as the guru of all things Billiken recruiting, and we were at least in contact with some people down at IMG Academy.
yeah. SLU coaches, well, at least
The
one
tweet was
coach.
weird. The
The
tweet was
tweet
weirdly worded.
it was, but here's something you run into a lot in basketball recruiting. They'll talk about IMG Academy. They'll say has this many guys who are unsigned spring 2022 available players, and they'll say here are the coaching staffs who are said to be coming in tomorrow to watch. Now you don't know exactly what guys on that list, what schools are looking at. And I run into this constantly because I'm trying to figure out what schools are interested in a player, including SLU, and vice versa, and what other guys just might incidentally be there. To use a local example, before they transferred, you had Terrace Reed and Damian Mayo, both at Chaminade, both of whom projected as D1 level recruits. Terrace Reed was a high, solid 4-star recruit with the whole Big Ten recruiting him. Damian Mayo was a little bit lower level, a guy who had a lot of interest, but not really any offers. So you might see Michigan's going to be at Chaminade tomorrow, watching uh, 4-star Terrace Reed along with 6'3" wing Damian Mayo, and you're kind of like, well, I'm sorry, they would have a list of schools, so it would say like Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois, SLU, Mizzou, K State, SIUE. SIUC, and UMKC. They're all going to be there. And you're kind of like, well, I bet not all of those schools are looking at the same guy. Like, I don't think Edwardsville's showing up to Chaminade's gym after Terrace Reed has all of these Big Ten offers trying to land him. You know what I mean? So you wind up with these kind of like, here's a bunch of schools, here's a bunch of players in the same tweet, and you're trying to figure out who's interested in who. That's a long way of saying it was reported that SLU would be going down to IMG Academy to see there were four names on the tweet. Jorge and Guillermo Diaz, who are Spanish twins, actually from the Canary Islands, and then two other players, Jaden Kirkwood and Lorenzo Washington. Now, if I'm looking at this tweet, I did just cursory research on Kirkwood and Washington, and it seems like both of those guys are a little more marginal. The Diaz twins, on the other hand, 6'11" and 7 feet tall. Both of them are considered top 150 players, and neither of them really have many offers. It's a very weird time right now because so many schools are recruiting the portal so heavily. You've got these not even diamonds in the rough. I mean, diamonds just not in the top shelf. Like,
they're at K Jewelers.
Yeah, they're very much on display. They're just not like right on top of the counter. These guys are like I said, 7 foot, 6'11". They handle it. They both shoot it at the perimeter. They rebound. I mean, they're skinny, they're like 190. But they really are impressive players, and they're going to need to bulk up and learn how to defend. But these guys really look like impressive college players. And if SLU can even get in the mix on one or both of them, because they said they don't necessarily have to be a package deal. If SLU can get in the mix on these guys, that's a very welcome development in what has otherwise been a really quiet recruiting period for SLU.
I have to apologize to West Pine Bills right now for not making an Uncut Gems reference. Because that, this is how I win, that kind of.
These guys are built kind of like Kevin Garnett. If we want
yes,
to bring that
all right.
I'm not saying they're that.
I'm going to start wearing a leather jacket, chains, and transition lenses. Hell yeah, let's go.
I think we did. We do have some listeners who bet parlays like he did in that movie.
Yeah, I know we do. I believe Eddie Marugi is one of those gentlemen.
I'm not calling out anybody by name. I just know they're out.
Well, no, hey, he's on Twitter talking about his parlays. So
yeah.
I'm not calling him out on anything.
Yeah,
but I love that, like. When I looked at that tweet though, because it said Kirkwood in Washington, and all I could think about are high schools in the St. Louis area.
Right, I know.
I was like, wait a minute, they're at IMG Academy and the Kirkwood. What? I know. I was very, very confused. Speaking of confusion, the A10 coaching carousel had quite a bit of confusion. UMass ran the gamut of available coaches in the past week.
This was weird because
it got exhausting after a while. It was annoying eventually.
As soon as McCall was fired, Martin's name came up, and immediately people were like, he's got Northeast ties. His wife went to UMass. She was a track star there, back in her day. This one makes a lot of sense. He just got fired at South Carolina. He wasn't known to be in the mix anywhere else. And then it just kind of languished for how long has it been now? Almost 2 weeks or something like that?
No, it was like 20 plus days.
Wow, yeah, it's an eternity in this coaching cycle. And
we're going to get into eternities in the coaching cycle when we talk about the women's coach too.
Well, yeah, but so regardless, it was kind of like, what's going on here? This seems like such a, if UMass is going to make a move and this guy's available, like what's the holdup here? What's going on? So I don't know if Martin was kind of waiting out and seeing what other options there were. I really have no idea, but in the end, it was Martin, and it was painful for us. It was painful for our Twitter because A10 Twitter was disproportionately talking about this coaching vacancy more than anything else over the last couple of weeks, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah, Schmidt was not
Oh, that was the best part.
not new girl Schmidt. We're talking about Mark Schmidt.
Yeah, why don't you run us through that? Because that was kind of the funniest part of this whole thing. I mean,
So
funniest, most annoying.
What Blaudchen is his name?
Yeah,
I don't even know who the hell this guy is, but he was pumping up the idea that Mark Schmidt was gonna. I don't know if he was just messing with UMass fans, but he kept saying that or maybe messing with Bonaventure fans. You know, Bonaventure's in the middle of an NIT run. He's saying that Mark Schmidt has agreed in principle and that'll be announced in the next couple of days. And I think Curry Hicks Sage was kind of poo-pooing him, just calling him a hack, like no idea what he's talking about, which turned out to be true. But yeah, it just went on for like 3 days where it was the Blaudchen was telling people that Mark Schmidt was going to leave Bonaventure for UMass. And it turned out to be Martin heading from South Carolina to UMass.
yeah.
So,
And in the meantime, it's rumored that Schmidt's going to get a raise at Bonaventure. I don't know if that's been finalized.
I mean, he could go somewhere else too.
Yeah.
I mean, they win an NIT. He's like, all right, well, all my guys are leaving. I really would love them to win this NIT so that we no longer have to deal with any of these Bonaventure players. Give them their closure and get them the hell out.
Yeah, yeah. And a coaching change would help too. But yeah, I think I don't know. Schmidt strikes me as such a Northeast guy. It seems to me like there aren't a whole lot of jobs that would be
Schmidt to St. Peter's confirmed.
That would be awesome.
Hey, they've gone further in the NCAA tournament in the last,
Yeah. Well, hey,
years.
then anybody in our conference. And I mean, what was Dayton the last team to make an Elite Eight? Which
George
wasn't
Mason.
Well, no, Dayton.
Well, I know George Mason
Dayton did it
wasn't
more
in the
recently.
A10 though,
Yeah,
but George Mason made a Final Four.
yeah, but that wasn't as
Yeah.
recent as Dayton went on that run, right?
Right. VCU maybe before that.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's I don't know. St. Peter's could be a hot job at that level, but regardless, Mark Schmidt is not going to UMass. Meanwhile, we've got a couple more vacancies in the A10.
Yeah, LaSalle. It took them a while. I guess they were waiting to have a meeting.
Yeah.
Ashley Howard is no longer employed at the University of LaSalle University. Sorry, Golo boys. Rumor. Tell us about the rumor that a former A10 coach could be coming back to the A10.
Fran Dunphy, not just former A10, but former Philadelphia area coach. That would be.
I didn't know he was alive. I'm sorry. I thought he was dead.
It would so yeah, I mean that's the perfect illustration of
He's the AD at Temple.
Yeah, oh yeah, but I mean this is not exactly a sexy pick here. This is a 73-year-old. He's not some up and comer. I don't know if they just kind of want to keep the program warm for a few years. I'm not really sure what the angle is here or
Shaheen Holloway is not available.
No, he's not going to be available. And then, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Temple AD job is not a great one. They went in on football, and it seems like that's been at the expense of basketball, and their other programs. And basketball has been such a proud program there for so long, and now it's an afterthought. So maybe that's not a great AD job, but I'm not really sure what LaSalle wants to do with this hire, but that actually, I mean, it's a pretty interesting rumor if it's the truth.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good hire for LaSalle. I think so. I think.
Yeah, but again, it's not a hire that's like here's a
right.
term.
But LaSalle's not sexy.
So both ways, you're like, hey, this is a great fit.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, I think, well, first of all, there's rumors that they are not rumors, but I think they're working on revamping their basketball arena in air quotes.
I mean,
I know they're trying to put money into it. So, I mean, maybe you bring in a guy like Fran Dunphy, like it's a Majerus hire.
Ooh.
It's a guy who can rebuild the program. He knows the Northeast. And
Yeah.
he's a guy that, he's gonna come in for 5 years, maybe point them in the direction of a better coach that can take over
Yeah.
so you bring him in to go along with your new arena. You build the pro. It literally mirrors the Rick Majerus hire.
As soon as you put it in those terms, which I had not thought of, I actually think it makes a lot more sense.
I legitimately didn't have this idea until the peek behind the curtain. I don't have any nothing I say is written down. Nothing. Pete can attest to this. None of this
I
stuff
think our
is written
listeners
down.
probably know that.
Yeah. So, which is, I think, makes for better audio, just because I go off the rails way more. But yeah, so
I
like
like
it.
that though. Now that you say that, I mean, it's fine. I mean, like, look, they've been in the
The
bottom of the
pooper.
A10 for how long? So if there's a guy who's local, who's a good coach, who gets it, I mean,
Yeah.
if he hires the right assistants, then yeah, so be it. I think that maybe does make sense.
Let's well, GW, the search continues.
Yeah.
Bill Adam Sandler in the Waterboy voice. No, Mama, the search continues. The gorilla that punched him in the eye. You know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I haven't seen the film in 20,
Oh,
25 years, but yeah,
still
sure.
funny. Women's basketball. Uh, Obviously, Lisa Stone was let go. I believe her contract probably was just not renewed. Obviously, there are going to be transfers and decommitments when a coach is not retained or leaves or is fired. Pete, tell the fans what they need to know.
So the only transfer so far, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Zach, but is Natalie Mcneil, who was the third leading scorer this season, a role that she kind of had to step up to and fill out because of how many injuries we had this year. So McNeil averaged over 9 points a game after playing really not many minutes as a freshman. And to her credit, she stepped up and did admirably, especially as the season went on. She did better and better. But she's the first one to announce a transfer after Stone's firing. And well, I guess technically Kaija Harbison did too as a grad transfer, but I think
You wonder.
that was
Yeah.
before the
We're
firing.
gonna
So I
get
don't.
into that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we'll get into that. But talk about there's one that is decommitted.
Yeah, and so well, and so and I don't know with the other three 2022 because Lisa Stone had four 2022, meaning high school senior players who were signed already. And one of them, Mackenzie Hare, a 5'9" guard out of Naperville North, outside the Chicago area, got out of her LOI and has reopened her recruitment. Now there are three others, Abby Leiber, Mia Nicastro, and Ashley Connor, and we don't know the word on any of those yet. They could be playing kind of wait and see with the new coach. It could just be a matter of like getting out of their LOI and the paperwork taking a little time. Don't know. And then Stone also had a 2023 commitment, a player from Wisconsin, Macy Donarski, a good point guard actually, and she hasn't given word yet either. Now,
She got a lot of time.
yeah, she's got a lot more time than the others. So we'll update you as soon as we know anything on those players. But like I said, it could be timing, it could be contingent upon the new hire. And speaking of the new hire, we don't have one yet, but what
No,
are you
we
thinking
don't.
on that front?
I mean, look. Okay, so my whole everything feels like it's leading to one person. Everything. Look, I think they knew Stone wasn't coming back. I think you look at Kaija Harbison, you look at the senior night. Like, why wouldn't MST come back? Why wouldn't Kaija come back? I think they knew that Lisa Stone was done. I think that there's no reason why. Well, first of all, when the announcement came, May said there would be no comment. So it's not surprising that it's been tight-lipped. But I'm under the impression that you wouldn't, if you're firing Stone, you know who you want, right? Or you have somebody lined up. And if you have that happen already, if you have somebody lined up already, they'd already be signed on. So they're still coaching right now, which leads me to the major name that was mentioned on Twitter, the only one that makes sense, because I guarantee you we're not going to hire Niall Ivey away from Notre Dame, and that's Deanna Jackson-Durrett. And I think we are watching her right now being an assistant for the University of Texas in the NCAA tournament. If they lose to Stanford tonight, within a week, she will be announced as the next head coach of your women's basketball team.
I am, fully supportive of that being the case. If that is
yes,
the case.
Yeah, no, I mean
that would be a home run.
Yes, it would be, and I think the only way you can, I mean, Lisa Stone was a home run when you hired her. She still is a home run. She brought your program back from the depths of hell.
Yeah,
and I mean, you only fire a home run if you can hit a grand slam, and Deanna Jackson-Durrett is the grand slam. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I don't see any other option. Dayton just hired their coach, which was a Division III head coach who just finished her first season. I was surprised they didn't hire from within, honestly. And I don't think that, and I know the name, what's her name? Who was the assistant for SLU that went to Dayton to work under Shauna Green?
I'm blanking.
Her name, yeah. But I know her name was floated out there as a potential replacement, and it was, Dayton hired Tamika Williams Jeter, and she was the D3 coach at I have no idea where she was. Olivia Applewhite was the former Billiken assistant.
Okay.
And I know she had been kind of floated there a little bit. But she was a Tamika Williams Jeter, who they just hired. She coached at Kansas, Kentucky, Penn State, Ohio State, and then has head coaching experience at Wittenberg. And ready for this one? This is wild. She was the head coach of the India national team. The Indian women's basketball national team.
That's like Bob Bradley coaching Egypt. It's
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. I don't know. I just noticed that, and that's really kind of cool.
It is. It is. And yeah, to kind of circle back on Deanna Jackson-Durrett, who we both are banging the drum for. So just to remind people, she is from St. Louis. If you recognize her name, she would have been Deanna Jackson at the time. Parkway West High School. She was the Missouri Player of the Year, 2001, which means same age as me, 2001. She was Oklahoma class of 2005 and was drafted in the WNBA, but didn't really play much in the WNBA, just a little bit with the Chicago Sky, and then bounced around, Israel, Switzerland, before getting into assistant coaching. She's been an assistant at SEMO, George Mason, Mississippi State, was the associate head coach at Mississippi State, and for the past 2 years has been the associate head coach at Texas. It's a great profile on paper. She's from St. Louis, really well regarded in coaching circles. So, we're not just like pulling a name out of thin air, or someone who happens to be a hot up and comer at the time. I mean, this is an outstanding bio for a potential hire. If Zach's red
tea leaves.
I was gonna say red yarn strung between thumbtacks on your. If it's all pointing to that middle picture of her, if he's correct in his conspiracy theory here, that's why we're so high on her.
Yeah, and we talked about the credentials of Dayton's head coach. And again, that's another thing. Olivia Applewhite, I'm sure she's a great assistant coach right now, right? But if Dayton's not going to hire her, you have to keep up with the Joneses in this conference. And I mean, Olivia Applewhite has great credentials. She spent 5 seasons under Lisa Stone. And as an assistant coach and director of operations, video coordinator, and graduate assistant, she spent a year under Shauna Green at Dayton. But again, look at the credentials of the woman they just hired, Tamika Williams Jeter. It's off the charts, right? There's a lot more to it, and I think someone more. I mean, obviously, Deanna Jackson Dirt checks those boxes multiple times over. So
Yeah, and she's not. There are other good candidates out there.
absolutely.
She's our favorite at
But
the
it
moment.
just feels like there's not been anything. I mean, and of course, there's not as much media speculation around
Right.
women's
Yeah. We
basketball.
we
There,
don't.
that's
Right.
true. But you would at least, I feel like there would be leaks, right? And
Yeah.
and a local reporter throwing it out. She was the one who threw it out originally. I forget who. What was her name? Man, I did I credit her last episode? Because I feel like
We did.
I
We did credit her last episode. But I'm trying to remember. It starts with an M.
Yeah, it's a double M. I think
Yeah.
it's. I'm pulling up Stu Durando's Twitter account right now, but yeah, I mean, you feel like if they didn't have somebody already, you feel like they would at least be like, okay, there's people that are hearing from that may be in talks or have reached out to so and so, and there's just none of that there,
Yeah.
and it just Michaela McGee.
Yeah. That's it.
Michaela McGee. So shout out Michaela McGee. I hope you listen to the show because that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Um,
She's. Where does she work now?
oh, sorry. She was Miss St. Louis, USA.
But she
Uh,
says she's an anchor,
Anchor,
reporter,
reporter,
host.
host.
I thought she was on a local outlet, but I'm not sure.
Fox 2, probably.
Yeah, she's got
She's
Fox 2
she's
retweeted a lot.
retweeted, yeah. So Fox 2.
All right. So Michaela McGee, yeah, again, shout out. She was the first that we saw mention it. And it seems like a pretty inspired
And if
choice.
she is a St. Louis, personality, I mean, she would probably be, in with Deanna Jackson Dirt as a friend, perhaps. So, yeah, please, dear Lord, let Deanna Jackson Dirt be the next head coach of your women's basketball team because I'll look like an absolute genius. Um, but yeah, all right. Well, let's go ahead and move on. All right, Billiken fans, we got a really cool interview, something a little bit different than normal. We actually have Jordan Niesler. I hope I said that right.
You did.
Awesome. I should have asked you before I started this. But we have Jordan Niesler. He works with the athletic department. If you've seen any of the content on Twitter, with the videos, the post game videos, that's all him. Man, I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of the videos. They're super cool. But yeah, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Heard a lot about Midtown Madness, you on Twitter all the time. So I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Oh well, we definitely appreciate that. Give us a little background about yourself. You're from St. Louis, correct?
Yeah. Born and raised in St. Louis. Always followed the Billikens from afar. So been cool for me to get in with the athletic department and, do what I do. It's been awesome.
Where did you go to college at? Did you go to SLU?
No, I graduated from Maryville in August or in May of 21 and then started at SLU in August of 21.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, like, how did you kind of get into the? You're not an intern. You work for the university, right? Or the athletic
I'm
department.
I'm a external intern in the athletic department. So
Okay.
still have that intern title on me.
Was this position something they had before that they've kind of been cycling through, or was it kind of created and you were the first to take it on?
As far as I know, I was the first to be like this, like kind of like content social media intern person.
Mhm.
As far as I know, so glad that I was able to be that first person.
What are some of your influences or inspirations when it comes to your video production? Because I mean, I've noticed it's very, cinematic and theatrical. Where do you kind of draw your inspiration from for those?
Yeah, I kind of, especially for like the recap ones, like a big thing for me is trying to keep it as like professional and cinematic and high end as possible. Definitely have gotten inspiration from all of Duke's platforms. I think what they do is like obviously the best sports social media and the professional or collegiate landscape. I think they're just insane at what they do. But I've just just from my education of how I learned like to do photo and video, kind of just like taking that into what I do at SLU. So it's nothing necessarily like, I went to SLU and I was like, I have to do it this way. It's kind of just like how I learned to create and brought my style to all that content there.
What are the tools that you're using to put out this awesome content?
So I have my camera. I shoot with a Nikon Z6. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh my God, you shoot Nikon and not Sony," and I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." But I'm thinking about transitioning to Sony, but that's for another conversation. But yeah, I use my Nikon, and my MacBook Pro right here is my entire life. So I use Premiere, Lightroom, all that wonderful Adobe Suite stuff.
Yeah, I went to when I was at SLU, we used Final Cut Pro,
Another good
but
one. Another good. Yeah.
unfortunately, I can no longer afford. So I actually just I edit this whole show on doing it on video is actually just out of necessity for using iMovie,
Yeah.
because it's just the easiest way to transition it from to audio to edit audio instead
Yeah.
of using something like Audacity or whatever. But yeah, I I really don't like. How many road trips were you on this year? Because you seem to
Oh my
be
God.
in the. Are you on every road trip?
So when I first started in August, I didn't travel with anybody. The first time I traveled with a team was with women's soccer when their conference tournament started. So I went to Dayton with them, and um, obviously they won. So we went to Ole Miss for the first round of the NCAA tournament, then right to Rutgers for the second round. And then when that ended was when like the men had like their championship at Herman, and then I went with them to, I think it was Duke was first, and then we went to Washington, and then done with soccer traveling, and then basketball had already started. They were like pretty far into their non-conference schedule. So then after the first of the year, I was on every road trip with them besides UMass because I had COVID, but um, everything with them for essentially the entire conference schedule and postseason.
How much of what we're seeing at the end of the game, like in one of your videos, are you the one actively shooting, or are you kind of taking pieces of what other people put together as well?
Everything in the recap video is all mine. Like everything that you saw social media on Instagram and Twitter with like the in-game highlights, all that's me. Um, Most of the pregame stuff I did with one of the student interns. So we kind of collaborate a lot on um, pregame stuff. And then the in-game content at home, we kind of tag teamed a little bit. So a couple of those videos are his. It's about 50-50 mine and his. And then all road stuff like travel, recaps, all of that's mine.
When you're on the road or at a game, how much are you actively? Is that red light on? How much are you actively recording?
I would say like a solid 95% of the game. When we travel, I usually only do like pictures and video of us like getting on and off the plane, and then I might do stuff like getting to the hotel. But if it's when we're in the hotel, like especially this year was hard because you had to be a little cognizant of like COVID regulations and what you put out with masks and all that stuff. So that was a little bit harder, but whenever we're like actively like en route somewhere, going to practice or a shoot around or going to the game, anytime a player's around, like I'm recording everything.
And are you trying to be invisible, fly on the wall, or are you really interacting with everyone and kind of saying like, like are you giving them any like, hey, could you walk by one more time or something like that? And
I
any
would
notes?
say like whenever it's a game day and they're in like practice mode or like game mode, I don't have much interaction with anybody because I'm trying to just let them go about like how they prepare and all that stuff, let them stay in their own little bubble. But if there's like a video that we're trying to put together for like a promotion or something along those lines, and a lot of it's staged, like the video of Fred Thatch wearing a sweatshirt, like that was all me and Fred put that together.
Yeah.
But no, like I tried as much as possible to stay on fly on the wall, but they also know that I'm there and filming things to put the program in a great light, so they know like kind of what I'm doing and why I'm there. So it's not necessarily like it's a like an awkward encounter if someone like sees me or like makes eye contact with me or something when I'm shooting.
So by now, I mean, most of the players are kind of familiar with you and what you're doing and trying to get and all that.
Yeah, I met the team in like June before I even knew the position was even a thing. I did a lot of stuff for a couple players and was in Chaffetz a little bit here and there when they did like open runs in the summer. So I knew, like, I would say, a majority of the team before I even started at SLU. So that was the awkwardness of like a random person recording everything. That never really was a thing.
Uh, who is there anybody on the team that likes to ham it up whenever they see you, or likes to, put on a little flair whenever the camera's around?
I should turn that question around on you. Who do you think?
Oh, it's got to be TJ. Pete.
Yeah, that's kind
TJ,
of an easy one.
TJ, like
TJ, I bet Nesbitt. I bet oh, who else? Those two kind of come to mind first. I don't know.
yeah, I would say, and I don't even see it as a bad thing. Like I would say TJ is very, very good and comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But definitely they like to perform when it's on, but they know when it's time for business, they can get into game mode and turn me off a little bit. But it's definitely TJ. Yeah.
I said I don't know if I ever said it on the podcast, but I said I saw WWE did a NLI or NIL thing, like their like next program, like for wrestling. And I was like, TJ, if TJ doesn't do basketball, he's gotta at least reach out to the W. I mean, he's got the right combination of athleticism and ham personality for that.
Yeah, he's the man. Like that's part of what makes the job so fun is like obviously it's intense a lot of the times and it's business 99% of the time, but that 1% of that cool interaction with players, it's pretty fun to have that connection.
What's like kind of the interactions between you and like how does the coaching staff react to videos? Like, do you spend much of your time even focusing on videos of coaching staff, or?
I film them as much as I film players. I just don't include them as much, and there's a lot like locker room stuff that obviously has to be like no audio. So if I put it in a recap, it'll just be like a slow motion, like Coach Ford, like with like a hand movement as he's talking type of thing. But I will say Coach does like he'll come up with a video idea sometimes and he'll just kind of run with it. That didn't happen as much this season, but no, he definitely has his own creative mind that you see every now and then. But the coaches are really cool. They know the job that I'm doing and the potential that it has to help the program. So they're kind of like, what, do your thing, like we trust you, which has been awesome for me.
Is anything like off limits to you? When I'm 39. When I was there, obviously your position did not exist. Zach, I heard that. But no, like, so back in that era, you're talking about like Coach Soderbergh, who I spent most of my college career with as a manager. And he was really like protective about information and what people saw. He liked his practices mostly closed off. Do they ever kind of give you like, all right, not here, not now?
I haven't gotten that yet. But when I first started, I didn't do as much like filming when I first started. I kind of just like went to practices and like kind of got a lay for the land and how like things operate. Because I didn't want to like come in here right away and like all of a sudden there's this new guy here with a camera that no one knows. Especially for the coaches, because I didn't know the coaches, I knew the players. So a lot of it at the beginning was just kind of being at practice and kind of walking around in the background and just seeing like how things worked. And then once I got to know people a little bit better, it was more, I feel like, I don't know, the relationship between me and what I do and like the coaches on a professional level is very like trust driven, I would say. Like you kind of have to have an idea of like, okay, if I post this, is this gonna be a good idea or a bad idea? So a lot of things that like huddle talks, I don't really post those. And if I would show coaches the video first and be like, hey, like, can I post this like huddle talk? But nothing is really off limits. Like I'm in the locker room before the game, in the locker room after the game. So yeah, it's kind of just a trust relationship type of thing.
Uh, what is your literal game plan for the games? How do you map out? Do you have a map out of like where you're gonna be at a certain time, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Um, so that was kind of a big thing for me, like at the beginning. Like obviously if you go to a college basketball game, it's different, like watching it and knowing what's going on rather than like knowing what actually goes on, like when people aren't out there and on the court. So I had to like talk to BK a lot, and I was like, you got to tell me where people are going to be and where. Like I don't know what's going on. So he helped me a lot with telling me like the schedule of events before a game. Like they'll come out on the court, they'll go to the locker room after the game, they'll do media. Coach Ford will do his interview with Rammer. So it was kind of just like getting thrown into the deep end and just figuring it out during like exhibition season. And then after that, they have such like a specific way they do things, so nothing ever really changes. So once you see it the first time and kind of absorb like the routine that they have, it's kind of hard to not be in the right spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you bring up BK. I mean, so are you still kind of constantly working closely with him?
I work closely with BK every single day.
Okay. More than anybody else? Is he kind of your point person?
Yeah, I would say during soccer season, I worked a lot with PD. PD did a lot of soccer content before I had gotten there, so I worked a lot with him to figure out that world. And then when basketball started, because BK travels with the team too, so I was always like picking his brain about like things that the team does and like what can we do to like get different content that we haven't done before. Yeah, and just using him as a resource because he's like the goat in my eyes around there. Like BK, you have a question, go to BK type of thing. So yeah, he's been huge in helping me kind of grow into this spot.
You had quite the kind of the introduction to SLU athletics. You had a women's soccer program that was doing really well. You had a historic run for men's soccer. Is there a favorite moment? I know you mentioned you're a big fan of Duke's social media. You got to go to Duke, but is there a favorite moment so far that you've gotten to witness and kind of take in?
I will say that men's soccer win at Duke was like, that was sick. And also women's soccer winning at Ole Miss, like those two soccer wise are like, it's going to take a lot this coming season to top those moments. But I know obviously the women's team has people coming back off the injury and might have more of a healthy roster this year, fingers crossed. So maybe that moment will be topped a little bit, but beating Duke at Duke was like, and I can't say this for certain, but it definitely felt like it was a home game. Our fans were just like going nuts the whole time. But for basketball, I would say Yuri hitting the game winner at George Mason was sick. And then beating St. Bonaventure was just like made my entire year. So I would say those are up there. And Jordan Nesbitt dunking to end the game against Dayton at home was pretty awesome too, for many reasons. Jordy Jet's the GOAT, but
So yeah.
Ask him what happened, Pete.
Yeah.
I'm open about it. Like nothing really happened. It was just they were just going back and forth. It wasn't like that big of a deal in my eyes.
I was
in the moment
there.
that really got blown up, with especially Dayton fans on Twitter, like trying to claim that he pushed their player or something like that. I mean, it was
if someone would have been pushed, it would have been a brawl. That's all.
Yeah.
Like no one got pushed. Like I don't know. It was just heat of the moment. Like I don't know. I don't point fingers at any side. It was just heat of the moment, rivalry game. Like it happens.
But it was just a matter of him standing up, kind of jawing at him a little bit, and then the ball landed in a super weird spot.
Yeah, the ball landed it was pinned between Jordair's leg and my shoulder, and I was like, "Get this ball away from me! I
That
can't."
was
Yeah.
you. That
So
was
it was
you.
you. It
Wait
was
a
you.
minute.
Yeah, like in the
Okay.
that picture that was going around of like the
Yeah.
ball like at his knee, it was sitting on my shoulder, and I was like, "Oh my
His
god,
knee.
someone get yeah!" I was like, "Someone get this ball off of me! Like I'm not about to get in the middle of this." But
Did at any point did you want to just like could you kind of tell, hey, if the ball stays here, this could get weird? Like
so
or did you assume Jordair was gonna like pick it up and throw it back or something?
in the moment, like I knew Jordair had came and sat behind me, um, just because he's the goat, and I like grew up watching Jordair, so I was like, "Oh, that's sick." But um, like he wasn't like rowdy at all during the game, so I didn't think much of it. But when Nez dunked and the ball bounced over me, and then I saw like I think it was Malachi was walking towards me. At that point, I'm not even thinking anything. I'm thinking he's just going to walk past me, pick up the ball, and it's going to go. And then, because I'm still looking at the camera, like filming Nez, like celebrating, run down the court. And then the next thing I know, I just see like everyone running towards me, and I'm like, bro, what is going on? And then it was over, and then it literally was over. So
That's insane. I'm so glad nothing happened. First of all, I'm super glad that Jordair took the heat off me because I was sitting right there being rowdy, like right on the corner.
yeah, I saw you. I saw you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm super glad Jordair was there to take heat off me for anything I may or may not have done. But I'm glad it didn't get escalated. I was way too close to that and
It
way
was
too
like,
emotional to be close to anything more. So I'm super
yeah.
glad. But speaking of kind of things kind of going haywire around you and you're filming, I always say that I would have been a bad media member, right? I worked in social media for a sports team right out of college, and then I'm no longer doing that, obviously, but I get too heavily invested in games.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself where you kind of start watching the game as a fan and you have to reel yourself in, and how do you kind of keep your focus?
So that's interesting that you asked that. When I first started filming games at SLU, first of all, I'm so glad that there were two exhibition games to start that weren't close at all, because I truly didn't know how like I would react being like such a huge basketball fan and like all of a sudden like I'm involved in everything. But it's crazy. Like whenever I'm filming, like sometimes it'll be halftime and I genuinely have no idea what the score is. Like I don't know who's playing well. We could be up by 30 points. I would have no idea. Like I sometimes people are like, yeah, like Shea Fitz went nuts after that play. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So it's kind of crazy in that aspect. But when we were in the A10 tournament and playing St. Bonaventure, it was like 2 minutes left in the game. And obviously it was close. And Jalen Attaway hit a couple shots, and they get a turnover back down on our end. And Jalen's about to inbound the ball to Kyle Lofton, and Jalen's like looking at the crowd, and I'm at this point not filming, and I'm just kind of like observing. And Jalen's like, "It's winning time! It's winning time!" And like my fan, like basketball fan mind kicked on, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, because it's like, man, Jalen Attaway's saying winning time, and he just lights out from everywhere. I was like, no. But that's the only time really that I got disconnected. But other than that, like we could beat freaking Villanova by 30 points at home, and I couldn't even tell you the score.
I think that shows too, like in that Nesbitt video in particular, not to go back to that too much, but the way you stay on him, the whole time after that play is happening, you very well could have switched it off at that point and been like, all right, I got to get myself out of this situation, or I got to make sure this isn't weird or whatever. But the way you stayed on him, I could kind of tell like, all right, he's locked in on what he's doing here.
Yeah, I genuinely have no idea what the score is until I look up at the scoreboard and tweet out the score graphics. I have no idea what's going on besides what I see on the camera screen.
So a little background on myself. I did a little bit of what you do on a very, very basic level. Like I was using iMovie. I was taking video of soccer games from like the platforms. You can see the terrible videos I posted on YouTube from way back in the day. But BK's always been a great mentor towards me and a great friend. And I'll love BK forever. He's done amazing things for me.
That's Brian Kunderman.
Yes, sorry. We've been.
We
I
just call him
meant to
BK.
do that. I
Well,
meant
who's
to do
BK?
that. Yeah,
We're just big Burger King fans around here.
I really meant to clarify that like 10 minutes ago. But do you have any good stories about BK working with Brian?
Man, I don't know if I should tell this one. He might get mad at me if he sees this, but I'll tell him.
I think certain people might get mad that you were even on the show. But anyway, no, that's another. Never mind. Go on. Sorry.
So sometimes when we get off the plane, it is very, 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 very cold. So BK always had they looked like oven mitts that he would put on. And I would always make fun of him. I'm like, BK, you got your mitts? And I didn't know what they were. He was said they were for golf or something, because he's like a golfer or whatever. And when we went to St. Bonaventure, it was freezing, and a couple other places where it was cold, and everyone would come off the plane huddled up and stuff, and he'd come off just wearing his mitts, literally oven mitts, and it was the funniest thing. So I just gave him a lot of crap for it. And yeah,
we'll have to. I'll have to shoot him a text, ask him if he's got his Arby's mascot mitts on.
Yeah, just say, hey BK, you got your mitts? It's gonna be cold tomorrow. He'll be like, oh my god, who told you that?
That's awesome.
I just Googled golf mittens, and now I see. I'm not a golfer, but I see what you're talking about.
They look like oven mitts.
Yeah, they're huge.
I think
it's hilarious.
I think I saw like a dating profile, and a girl was wearing. I think I know exactly what you're talking about too, because there was a picture of her in a golf cart wearing these mitts, and I was like, I've never seen those before. And then I swiped left.
I was like, BK, what are you wearing? What is that? What are we doing?
That hey, Pete, anything?
I do actually. I'm curious. Yeah. So just a couple other things. So as you've been there, do you kind of feel your style changing? I mean, obviously you're gaining experience and probably dialing certain things in. Yeah. But over the course of the year that you've been there, do you kind of feel like, oh, hey, I've developed in a different way that I didn't quite expect?
Yeah, I definitely feel like my skills have definitely been enhanced, because I have had to do it for such a long time for certain days that were game days and whatever. I put in a lot of time doing photo and video and social media while I'm there. So I definitely feel like I've gotten so much better. And PD actually helped me a lot with a lot more attention to detail. Because one of the first things he said when I worked there was some of these accounts have really big platforms, and I was like, yeah, I get it, but I didn't really get it at the time. But some of the men's and women's soccer and men's basketball, those platforms are huge, and they reach a ton of people. So he taught me a lot about attention to detail and making sure everything's as close to perfect as possible when we put stuff out. So that has definitely helped me a lot too with what I do, is just making sure everything's good to go 3 or 4 times and then hit that send button.
Thankfully, we don't have a massive platform because I try to stay off it. I even hate reading replies on Billikens stuff. The replies on social media are just there's nothing worse than YouTube replies, but even Twitter and Instagram are just kind of brutal.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. Lose one game and it's the end of the world to some people, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Hey, it's the end of the world to me. I just don't post about it,
and I respect it.
Exactly. I internalize that.
No, it's funny. We've had a couple losses this season where I've gotten DMs on my personal Twitter and personal Instagram accounts being tell this person to do this, tell this person to do this. And I'm like, bro, you've got to relax.
Sorry about those DMs, by the way. I didn't mean, I was drunk when I sent them.
No, that's funny.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was like one of the last things I wanted to ask you here was like, how different is your approach to editing this thing when we lose versus when we win? We had some tough losses this year that like I
Yeah,
did not feel great about at the end.
yeah,
And the last thing you want is like 9 new hype videos,
right.
like so how do you have to like sort of police your tone at that time?
I definitely like, so obviously for big games, if we're winning at halftime, so I have two pictures kind of lined up for like graphics. So at halftime, if we're winning, I like to post a graphic where a player looks like excited and it's like hype. Um, if we're losing, I like to do like a huddle picture or like a not as like excited, because then you'll just get clowned and people will reply like choose a better picture or like read the room or something like that. So I try to like keep in mind like what the response will be to everything. Same with like the final score graphics. Just kind of like I said, reading the room before you post something, so it's you're giving the emotion that's there and not like losing to Davidson. You don't want to post like everyone's screaming and stuff and hyped up on a final score graphic that knocked us out of the A10 tournament. So just kind of being like cognizant of that stuff. And yeah.
How glad are you that you didn't have to do like you only had to do like one stock photo of a ball sitting on a court when the Drake game didn't have like the previous year had to be brutal for graphic designers everywhere to just have to do stock pictures of rims and balls.
Yeah. Are you talking about just like pictures?
Game canceled. You know how like it's like on ESPN, like it's always like just an empty building, or like it's just
Yeah,
always a
yeah.
stock photo. It's always, yeah. But how happy are you that you only had to like deal with that once this year?
I'm so glad that we didn't have to go anywhere and then get canceled and have to come back home or do any of that stuff. Um, I was glad actually that I got COVID when we were in St. Louis, because if I would have gotten COVID like around the team, I would have been like my world would have just like shattered. I'm like, it's all my fault. But no, it was we were
Imagine those DMs.
absolutely not, couldn't do it. No, we were super fortunate this year and to only have to miss out on I think just one, right? It was just the Drake game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
of
that, yeah. Hey, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was
course.
absolute pleasure and definitely a learning experience, I think, for all of for Peter and myself, and hopefully
Yeah,
for our listeners as well, and giving us a little insight into your world and how things work. So we
Of
really
course.
appreciate it. I think it's going to be an awesome segment, and people are going to be happy with it.
Awesome. Thanks for not asking me about the transfer portal and who's coming back. I appreciate it.
hey, is there
Oh, by the way.
is there anywhere we can direct people to check out your stuff aside from just the official SLU Billiken social media?
Yeah, you can follow my Instagram and Twitter. It's just my first and last name, Jordan Niesler. Yeah, it's my Twitter and my Instagram. They're both the same thing. I post most of my work on Instagram, but you might see a few things go out on Twitter, some retweets of player stuff they post that I did. So definitely two good spots to come say what's up, but in a nice way.
Yeah, now we know a good graphic designer that we don't have to go to SB Unfurled for our logos anymore.
Man. No, if you need a graphic designer, hit up the brother. Cam
Yeah.
Nine.
Oh yeah. Plug your brother's stuff.
Hold up, I gotta see his exact at so I know, because he'd be pissed if I
Yeah.
didn't.
No, his your brother's a big time graphic designer.
Oh, big time. CamNeisler.psd. Big time.
And that's
Oh,
Niesler, Neisler,
Yep.
just so people get that right.
Yeah, dude, he's had like Power Five football programs reach out to him about like being like director of graphic design for their team. And I'm just like, dude.
it's super weird. Like Tipton Edits started as like a graphic designer, and then he became like the breaker of
Yeah.
all recruiting news just because he was the
Yeah.
one that was making the
Yeah, it's wild.
graphics.
Like this dude knows the stuff before anybody else.
That's insane.
Crazy.
All right, man. Well, we'll let you go. Have a good evening and enjoy the time. I would imagine. Are you working with baseball and softball at all, or
Yeah, I'll get out there.
cool? Yeah, man. Hey, you gotta get him on the plus. We want to watch some games.
Got you.
All right, take it easy, man.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jordan.
guys, for having me.
Thanks. Yep. Pete, let's move on to baseball. The Billikens all of a sudden find themselves 13-9. I believe. I think I had to do the math in my head because they did win today. Tuesday they had a game canceled at Missouri State, which is funny because the softball team also had a game Tuesday at Missouri State, both canceled. I don't know what the weather issue was there, but yeah. So they played Wednesday against Illinois State. They played Friday against Illinois State to the tune of a 15-7 loss. Losing pitcher Scott Youngbrandt in that one. However, and they did have a game canceled on Saturday, but Pete, they came back and won on Sunday, 8-2.
They did, and I'm glad they did because I kind of accidentally jinxed this one. A little peek behind the curtain when we were getting the notes together for this. We've got a shared, Google Doc. And after 7 innings, I decided it was over and put it in as a win. And as I'm typing it in, I see, oh, wait a minute, it's the top of the 8th. That's right.
Yeah.
So
I just keep the doc. I kept the doc open all day while I was watching basketball and saw Peter was typing and I typed in, if they lose, it's on you.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was. I think he thought it was the 7th. But yeah, this was fun. I mean, to be fair, I did doze off a little bit with a little Sunday nappy mid game, but it was nice to watch them on TV. Although college baseball, man, I mean that game started at 2, and I don't think it ended till a little bit after 5:30.
Yeah, it looked like a staff game for both teams. Slew through 6 different pitchers. Illinois State, I think, 7, even more. So, I imagine this one got dragged on a little bit. It was a relatively high scoring game at 8-2, and I'm just glad SLU, did me right. And instead of, coughing up a lead or something, they actually gave me some insurance runs. But it was like you said, good game. And, Tyler Harris got the win. He was in the 5th inning when SLU put 3 on the board, and then Cam Reddish hit a 3-run shot in the 7th.
That's Cam Redding, not Reddish of Duke fame.
Always basketball on the mind, but yeah, Cam Redding, homered to center, 3-run shot, put SLU up 6-1. Illinois State got 1 back, but SLU got 2 more in the 8th, and it's another win.
Yeah, not to get into a whole conversation about baseball and pace of play and how to make the game better, but in the staff game got me thinking, do we really need the coach to walk out to the mound for a pitching change to go get the ball? Like, why do we still do that? I mean, I don't want to sound like the guy that's like, progress, move, right. Always come up with take away all the history of the game and everything. But do we I always hate when people it's 2020. Do we really need to do but I mean, do we need to have the coach like a hockey coach doesn't go and yank the goalie out, take it he doesn't walk out on the ice.
I would like to see that actually. The coach with his suit and skates on, go out to the goalie, pat him on the shoulder.
It's not your day, son.
I do wonder, I mean, given all of the proposed rules changes at, major league level that they kind of play around with in the minors, you do wonder eventually if some of these sort of things will change. That's certainly something to look at, I think.
Could we put the bullpen behind a dugout, down in the bowels, that way he doesn't have to come from the outfield? I don't know. Is it I don't know. I'm spitballing at this point. I just can't believe nobody's ever thought, nobody's ever said that. Of all the things, they're like pitch count or pitch clock, all this stuff. It's well, what about all the why do we need the coach to walk all the way out to get the ball from him? Can't the Can't the player just like wait for the other guy to come in and then, I don't know, whatever.
I don't disagree, but 3:34 is a long time for a college baseball game that doesn't go into extra innings.
In
That's not like it doesn't have set commercial breaks and
right.
you know promotions for the fans and stuff like that. I mean, like it should just be like a meat and potatoes, like 9 inning baseball game, and it still takes over 3.5 hours to play it. So
Yeah, and I mean that's a game that's at the normal Corn Belters Stadium, so you at least have all the amenities that come with minor league baseball.
sure.
Whereas you're sitting on those cold ass bleachers here at the Billiken Sports Complex. I'm not making it. I'm not gonna lie. That's not
Yeah.
me. That's not me.
Yeah.
I am enjoying these like 7 inning situations.
Yeah.
Um,
I clearly I don't disagree. If I was already throwing the stats in the the shared doc.
yeah, no, I think I think I even said that. Like, I think a few podcasts ago, I said, why don't we just play 7? I mean, it would increase the product would be better. You wouldn't go as deep into the bullpen. I mean, sure, you'd have, you know, I don't know, less. I mean, there's already not enough scholarships to go around in baseball. They've already complained about it enough, but
Right.
And that should be something that should be looked at as well.
Right.
But anyway, upcoming, the Billikens will take on a tough SEMO team, 329. That'd be March 29th at 5 p.m. They're 16-5, and the last meeting did not go the Billikens' way, Pete.
No, that was a 16-5 loss. One of those things that right next to each other, I was like, oh, we must have one of those numbers wrong. But no, big loss for SLU, and hopefully they can be a lot more competitive in this one.
Coming up this weekend as well, they have Fordham on April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Yeah, this weekend, 3 early afternoon games. So I guess Sunday is going to be an 11 a.m. game. And those are all up in the Bronx. Fordham, kind of the opposite record of SEMO. They're only 5-15 this season. So hopefully SLU can get up there and get a sweep and really, get in good shape in the A10.
One thing I did notice during the broadcast is that Bonaventure has not won a game this year in baseball. That Illinois State put that out there, so that I thought that was kind of wild. Softball had a decent week. Had a good weekend. They were very competitive in their lone loss, but they come away 2-3 against UMass.
Yeah, not bad at all. Chloe Wendling got the decision in a 9-3 win on the 26th. They played a doubleheader that day. Although the second one got a little out of hand, 16-10 loss.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Taylor Hockman took the L in that one for the Billikens. Softball's super weird because you generally only have 2 pitchers on staff because the motion, I guess, is not as hard on the shoulder as a baseball throw. But good weekend for softball. Upcoming Wednesday, they will play here against Kansas City, and then Saturday and Sunday they will play a doubleheader. Saturday at noon and 2 p.m. versus Rhode Island, and then Sunday the 3rd at noon as well.
Yeah, before we move on though, that 2-1 win today, Chloe Wendling got the win. So that's 2 out of 3 this weekend that she pitches and got the win. Like you said, they can kind of throw fewer arms. She's all of a sudden 9-5 on the year. So she has 9 of the team's 11 wins. She's won 7 straight, and now she's matched her career high in wins, which she set last season. And they've still got over a month to play, close to 6 weeks left to play. So great season she's having so far.
Moving over to tennis, Pete. Men's tennis continues to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, they do. Dropped a 7-0 decision at Illinois State on the 23rd, and they're down to 5-9 on the season. It's been a little bit since they had their last match, and they don't play again until April 6th. So they're kind of in a weird part of the schedule where they're just not going very often. But yeah, it's been a bit of a rough season for him. And obviously when you drop a 7-0 score like that, it's there's not really any individual performances to talk about either. But hopefully they've got a little time now where the weather gets a little bit warmer, and maybe they can right the ship here and finish strong this spring.
One interesting thing to look at is this is a first year head coach. We forget. I don't think we talk about that a lot. I mean, we don't really talk about tennis in general a lot. But it's interesting for sports like this, like track and field, for swimming and diving, for tennis, because unlike the rest of the sports, the same coach coaches men's and women's. So it's kind of interesting to see the juxtaposition between the men's programs and the women's programs. And, moving into the women's side, the women have had a really nice season.
They really have. And, I guess I hadn't thought of that. I guess track and / cross country is the only other one.
Swimming and diving.
Oh, swimming and diving too. That's right. So yeah, it is kind of an interesting job, especially like you said, these teams have gone such different directions. The women's tennis won 4-0 against Missouri State this week. And Maya Spencer won in both singles and doubles. So now their record's up to 10-5 on the season. It's the first time they've had double-digit wins in 5 years. And they've done it with 4 regular season matches plus the A10 championship still on the schedule. So an excellent turnaround season they've had under the new coach. And their next match is the 30th out at Illinois State.
Yeah, it's interesting to see this first year head coach do so well, because I know that when he was hired, there was a little bit of trepidation from some alumni that I spoke with about kind of the approach to recruiting. There's 2 very different approaches to recruiting when it comes to tennis. There is go get the players from out of the country, international players that aren't, making the, aren't playing, like they're not elite, right? Whereas, or you come and you get the local or the Americans that maybe are not. There, you can either go international or American. It's hard to do both. And there's 2 very different philosophies. So, and this coach tends to go with the international and then grab a few kind of local prospects here and there. So,
yeah,
and that's actually continuing what Zitch did.
Yeah. And now that I'm looking at his bio, Justin Stuckey, he's actually, I guess it would technically be his first full year that hasn't been completely shortened by COVID.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I forget that I've been talking about him forever now.
And then he brought on, so he's got an assistant coach, Alan Farmer, who joined a year ago. And then the women also have an assistant coach, Stephanie Lee, who joined at the same time.
Interesting.
So spring of 2021. And I think the men just have a grad assistant, not 2 full assistants. Okay. But regardless, yeah, that's Coach Justin Stuckey. And the women's side doing really well.
That's another interesting wrinkle in there, that there's a head coach and then an assistant for each gender. I never thought.
Well, there's one assistant who crosses over, and then one who's women's only, while the men have a grad assistant. So yeah, it's a little unusual, I guess.
The Billiken track and field team hosted a meet this past weekend on Friday. Unfortunately, it was a very compact meet. Happened real quick. I was not able to get over after work on Friday, which I am very sorry. I owe a major apology to John Bell for not making it out there. But again, we're going to have him on again, and I'll apologize to him in person when we get him on to talk about his cross-country ride. Pete, tell us a little bit about the major. Toby Gillen's the big man on campus when it comes to running these days.
Yeah, he really is, and Coach Bell talked a lot about him when we had him on. Both the men's and women's teams placed second in the team competition, but Danny Hopkins won the 400. Slew finished first and second in the 5,000 meter. Patrick Donovan And sorry about your first name here. Firol Ahmed came in second. Toby Gillen, to circle back, won the 1500. This was his outdoor debut. As Coach Bell said, he hasn't been here very long. And he ran a 3:58.57 to finish first in a 22 competitor field. So that was pretty great time, actually. And then Ethan Rice took home top honors in the 3,000 meter steeplechase, and that time was 10:12.66. So
by the way,
some pretty great results there.
The steeplechase for the uninitiated is the one with the water.
Right.
It's
right.
The one
it's like
where
hurdles, water. It's a little weird.
Yeah, they did. There was some cool video that came out. John Bell does an awesome job as a half coach, half social media intern almost. He does.
Yeah.
He does a great job covering his own program. How about the women?
Women did well too. Katie Wissing won the triple jump and long jump. Emily Nichols finished first. It was a big field in the 200 meters with a time of 25:54, and then first in the 400 meters as well, 59:32. Teresa Lampe won the 100-meter hurdles at 14:68. And then Slew placed first and second in the discus as well, Angelina White and Ali Vandeheed. So did pretty well on the women's side as well.
I was kind of bummed that those throwing events were really early they were before the running. I kind of wanted to see that because I've seen running in person, but I don't think I've ever seen the throwing events in person. So I was a little bummed about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great all around week, for Billiken athletics, save for maybe men's tennis. But that wraps it up. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod, at Peter is a tweeter, at Zach Miller MMP. We also, of course, appreciate any suggestions you have for the show. If you got any rumors out there on the portal, anything like that, fire them our way if you got them. But yeah, go subscribe to the show on all platforms if you haven't yet. Check us out on YouTube too. It's a lot of fun to watch. You get to see my dumb facial expressions and and Pete too. Pete's dashing good looks over there.
That's right.
Yeah. So make sure you leave us a review, drop us 5 stars, and as always, Pete, go Bills.